Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and I feel so privileged every week to talk to smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of a range of different companies, ranging from Netflix, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, LendingTree, OpenTable. Go check out my back catalog. Lots of great episodes there, lots of great wisdom for you to soak up. I'm also the co-founder of Rise25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And quick shout out to Carl Smith of Bureau of Digital. He introduced me to today's guest, one of my past guests. So you can go check out his episode. Real smart and savvy guy. But today's guest who he introduced me to is Todd Anthony. Is an award-winning verbal branding expert, 20 plus years of experience. He's worked at some amazing, huge global creative agencies like Ogilvy, Young and Rubicam, J. Walter Thompson, as well as held creative leadership stints at big media companies such as CBS, Yahoo, CNET, some of those names you've probably heard of. In 2014, he created Pinwheel, a creative agency focused on brand storytelling and content marketing. He's worked with some amazing clients, including Johnson & Johnson, Fitbit, Experian, Nokia, Amazon. He's helped also launch and nurture young startup brands. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise25 Media, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. And you are listening to a podcast right now. So if you've ever thought about doing a podcast, I've been saying for the 11 years that I've been doing it, that everyone should have one. You should absolutely do it. Send us an email if you have any questions, support at Rise25 Media, or go to rise25media.com. All right, Todd. And pleasure to have you here. And you've got this crazy story. You started your career in a way that I think, I've done over 1,000 interviews. I don't think I've ever quite heard this story before. But yeah, you thought it'd be a good idea to hop on a plane, go to the Czech Republic, go to Prague. This is back in 91, 92, right after the fall of the USSR and the Berlin Wall. And you're selling phone books door to door in a country that is not your native country, and you didn't even speak the language. That's absolutely craziness. So tell me how that happened.
Yeah, so I was living in Seattle, and I was selling I was selling photocopiers, business to business, door to door, and it was a slog. I wasn't doing particularly well. I wasn't really well suited to that particular job. I also had some roommates that I wasn't getting along with, and a girlfriend that things were not exactly smooth at the time. So I was thinking I wanted to get as far away from all of that as possible, and I chose Czech Republic because it was affordable to live there, and also I'd spent a little bit of time just after college there, just as a tourist, just walking around town like like an idiot. But and so I just decided to go all in and I put about $3,000 in my shoe, and put a huge pack on my back with all my stuff, and just decided to just land there and figure it out. So that's what I did.
Wow. And so how long did it take you to find a job?
Yeah, it didn't take me very long, but it wasn't exactly, it was sort of serendipitous. I got locked out of my apartment at the time. So I'm there for basically 48 hours, and suddenly I can't get back in, because in the Czech Republic, they have key holes that you can put the key in on the inside, or you can put the key in on the outside. And I was given 2 keys. So I thought I would stick one key on the inside just so I wouldn't lose it. And then, I left. And when I came back to stick the key in, I realized I jammed the keyhole with the other key and couldn't get in. So I called the only phone number that I had in the Czech Republic, which was the son of one of my dad's friends, and asked him for help. And it turns out he had a company that was basically an information company where they were creating, because the Czech phone books were so out of date due to communism, and nothing really worked all that well during communism. And so the phone numbers were like 6 years old in the current phone book. So what his company was doing was saying, okay, what information do people who want to come into the Czech Republic and do business there and be successful, what information do they need? You don't need the whole phone book. You just need certain things. So you need to know all of the different phone numbers for the different Czech government agencies and who's in charge. You need to know who is running, the other foreign businesses, because you might want to partner with them. You need to know the restaurants because you want to get some good food. So things like that. And they put that together in a book.
And, I was in Prague in 1998. 1998, I traveled around, backpacked around Europe, and amazing country. And I remember at the time, amazing country, amazing city. I remember at the time thinking, wow, this doesn't feel that far removed from what it was like under communism. I remember seeing, older men and women walking around in probably same clothes, hadn't changed a bit. Didn't look like their life had changed all that dramatically. What was it like in 91, 92? Was it just like the total Wild West? Was it like a self-governing country? What did it feel like?
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, John, because a lot of the country was still kind of under the impression that they were still under communism or hadn't fully absorbed the fact that they are now no longer part of the Soviet Union. So there was a lot of the communist style, lifestyle. Approach to work is another thing. And then there were the younger generations that really, I think, embraced the newfound freedom, and they embraced the new possibilities that a more capitalist-driven economy could bring them. And so there was a lot of excitement in the Czech Republic when I was there. I mean, you could see it in people's eyes. They were, just looking at people on the on the metro. There was like a shining light in their eye. Just so much excitement, so much possibility.
That's cool. That's cool. And at what point did you decide it's time to go home?
I thought it was time to go home. Oh, I wasn't expecting that question. Nobody's ever asked me that, John.
You were usually there's some kind of breaking point, because when I traveled around Europe, I actually spent a little time in Paris trying to get a job there. Didn't have any working papers or anything like that. Didn't speak French hardly at all. Yeah. And I kind of felt defeated and ended up going home after that. So was there some kind of defeat, or was it just time to go?
Well, living abroad can be, it's exciting, but it can also be really hard because everything is different, especially, these post-communist countries. They were so incredibly different from where we grew up. And so the adaptation that you have to make, the sort of mental shift that you have to make is it's difficult. For example, you go into a restaurant, you might not see your food for over an hour. I'd actually eat dinner and then go to dinner, so that I didn't get anything.
So you wouldn't be hungry.
Yeah, that's a very minor thing, but so it's a grind the whole way through. And I think maybe I reached the same point that you did. I just did it more gradually. Like after 1,001 tiny little aggravations.
But you actually got a job with McCann Erickson, so you're an account executive. This is how you got into agency work, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And then did you transfer back to the States through the same company?
Not initially. So I just left. In fact, I had offered them to stay for a certain amount of money, and they balked at my number. So I just said, well, I'm going to take off and go back to the States. So I came back and I worked for a very, very small agency run by a guy whose license plate said ad man. So this is the kind of guy that I was, working for. He was from the 80s, when advertising was, a 3 martini lunch and, sexual harassment and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kind of a madman type of situation.
a total madman type guy. I lasted there for 4 months. He was not an easy guy to work for, and I wasn't learning anything new. So I actually did get a job at McCann, and started working there on the Safeway business, and then eventually worked on PG&E. But I met my wife there, who's the person who interviewed me when I first came in. So
That's great. Wow, you must have nailed it then. Must have nailed that interview.
I was going to ask her out if I didn't get the job. It took me a little while to after I got the job to work up the nerve, but yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. You go into copywriting, which is not an easy skill. Takes a while to get good at it. Some never do. How did you pick up the skill?
Well, I've always, like a lot of writers. I mean, if you interview, other writers in journalism or in copywriting, a lot of them will tell you like they've always been writers. They've always enjoyed it. That's always been part of kind of who they are, and that's true for me. I was on the account side, and I was jealous of the copywriters, and I could see they were having a heck of a lot more fun than I was having pushing papers. So I decided to go to the Portfolio Center in Atlanta to put my copywriting book together. So I dragged my wife out there, quit McCann, and dragged her out there while I put my copywriting book together.
What is that Portfolio Center?
Yeah, so that is now called the Miami Ad School, but it was originally this place that was, when I went there in '97, had already been around for 20 years and teaching people, copywriting, design, art direction, illustration, photography. Those were their primary programs. And so people who wanted to get into the communication arts would go there and pay them an ungodly sum of money to teach them how to do that. And
so it's like a graduate degree in the creative arts.
Exactly.
Sounds
you
like
walk out of there with a portfolio that you can show and get work from. So, yeah.
Got it. And you also were at Ogilvy, which is one of the biggest names in advertising. What was that experience like?
Well, I had been at Yahoo before I went to Ogilvy, and Ogilvy was they came in and basically took all our jobs. And we were given the opportunity to interview for them at Ogilvy. And so I did interview, I got the job, and I worked there for about 5 months. The thing about working there at that time, it was a brand new office in San Francisco. It was the second time they tried to open an office in San Francisco. They're not there now. So that didn't work out either. But that time we were working a lot of hours because they didn't want to scale too fast. The talent, they wanted to get a good foundation of income generating business before they started to expand. So
yeah.
We were doing 70, 80, 90, 100-hour weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy. And Yahoo, you were at Yahoo in 2002, which is, Yahoo started 94, maybe 95, something like that. So still kind of early days.
Something like that. Yeah, it was still during the time when, their brand was super strong. They had been doing some great advertising through Black Rocket back in the day. And, everybody sort of knew the Yahoo brand, and it was this fun, exciting, irreverent brand that a lot of people wanted to work on it. So that's why I went to work there. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Bring us up to present day. So Pinwheel Content, you start in 2014. How did that come about? How did you decide to go out and start your own agency?
Well, initially I had been at a company called TRX Training as the head of content for that. And it's a fitness brand, basically. If you know, there are these straps that are essentially, they're called suspension training. There are a lot of places now. A lot of people have seen them. We did a lot of video work, and one of the people that I had done some work with there was a guy named Desmond Crone, who was running the video team. And so we decided together that we're going to go off and start an agency. Initially, that was called Minty Fresh, and it was an agency that was very video focused. We did a lot of video work because he was a video guy, and what I learned from that was that you have to be very careful who you partner with. And so he and I had very different views on what we wanted the agency to be. And he wanted to be huge and I wanted to be small, basically. And so I decided at some point that this wasn't going to work out. I sold him my shares of the business. And went and started Pinwheel. But before I'll tell you about Pinwheel, I mean, the reason why I decided to start an agency in the first place was because I had worked at so many agencies where I felt like they were sort of doing it wrong. Like the model wasn't quite right. It wasn't great for the clients. It wasn't great for the creatives. It really wasn't great for anybody. And part of the reason for that was because there was this intermediation between the creative and the client. And there was an intermediation between, what the business objective was and the creative. And so I felt like nobody was being served well by this model. Having account people in the middle, the creatives don't talk to the client. And I felt like, in order to do really good creative, you have to really embrace what the client's objectives are, and you have to really know the client like individually to be able to create something that that they're going to approve, but that's also very good. That's also great advertising. There has to be that relationship built, and it's just very hard to do.
Have you changed your opinion as your company? So your company is now 7 years old. Has your opinion changed at all on that?
No. In fact, I'm just even more strongly held in that opinion. I feel like the better I know the client, the better I know, the more interaction I have with them, the more trust that's built up between us. Also, that's another part of it is they want to have a relationship with the creative. The creative wants to have a relationship with the client, and anything that's sort of separating those two parties is just not helpful in the process.
Yeah. So what's the solution for these larger agencies that do separate it out, have an account person and a creative person? Do you think that there's a way that they could reconcile those two?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that they need to, I think there's a place for the account person. I really think the account person could be more strategy oriented and less sort of project management oriented. There is a certain project management component that creatives would rather not do and shouldn't do.
Right.
And it's really not their forte. So that definitely still needs to be done. And the more you take that off the creative's plate, the more they can focus on doing good work. That said, I think there's an opportunity for account people who have a strategic mindset to go in and help the client think through what they're doing. Because a lot of what we see is, clients who don't necessarily know exactly what they want to do. But they know they have to do something, and they know it's due next Friday.
Right. And that, of course, what you've just described is you, right? Because you started on the account side and went into the creative side. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times I do step in and, insert a lot of strategy thinking. And that's just something I do naturally because I'm like, well, we can't do anything without, some sort of a focus.
I'm fascinated by this because I feel personally like I am one part extrovert, a big part extrovert, but on the other side, I have, introverted tendencies. No one can graduate from law school without some introverted tendencies, which I did. And then also I feel like there's a creative side to me and there's more analytical side to me. So would you describe yourself in those terms, like that you kind of balance out the different sides to your personality?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more like straight up introvert.
Yeah.
And definitely very analytical.
But you have the ability to balance both creative and, the more project management side, it sounds like. Yeah. And has that been hard for you to hire other people that have both sides to their personality that can do both?
Yeah, it's definitely not as common. It's easier to find people who are either creative or good with the project management side of things. There's just two different sides of your brain.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like great at either. I mean, I have done great work, but it's a lot of times the project management side is kind of a slog for me. And the creative side, honestly, can be very, very difficult and painful too. I think it's supposed to be, and that's part of
that's part of the creative process, right?
It's part of the process.
Exactly.
Bleed somewhere.
And I hate it and love it. Bleed out on the paper.
We're all masochists.
Exactly.
So.
Tell me about Experian. This is one of the interesting clients you've worked with, and take me through what you did with them as a client.
Yeah, I mean, Experian's been a great client for us. I was just figuring out today, I think we've been working with them for 4 years now, which is a good run for an agency to have as, a client agency relationship is a good run. We started out working with their content team and figuring out how to create a content engine. So you've got this huge need to put out lots of content because you're a big brand. How do you get enough good quality resources and a process that will ensure that you're doing good work at a high level, good work at a high volume, I should say. So we created a team of what we have now is, I think, 12 to 14 writers who churn out content, maybe 100 articles for Experian every month.
Wow.
And so that's a pretty high volume. And now that we know how to do that, we can create it at more or less any level. So,
and you said it's really important for the people on the creative side to really get to know the client and know, in order to create content that is representative of them, they need to get to know them. But on the other hand, I imagine your client Experian doesn't want to hop on the phone every month if a new writer comes on board. How do you balance those two?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of different ways that we balance that. One is that when we do have a writer who's working for us and they have been onboarded already, is we allow the client and them to work with, in the document together. We don't, mediate that at all. That's a direct thing. If there's an issue, there never has been an issue. So, but if there is, I'm sure there is a way to handle that. In terms of onboarding, well, we provide all the information in terms of how to write for the brand. And then I work with that writer when they're churning out their first article to help nail the voice. So, ensuring that they're hitting the voice and also, covering the topics to the same degree that our clients want them, covered. They have high expectations. They are awesome editors over there. They're really, really smart people who know the topic well. So first off, we hire people who are already creating content in the credit space, so that they know the area very, very well. And then we, like I said, we work with them to make sure that they are up to speed. And if they don't work out, then we just move on to somebody else.
Right. Now you've created all kinds of different content over the years. What are you watching as the content world develops right now? What areas, what platforms, what types of content do you think is going to continue to be big or bigger?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask that question to, but I will say that one of the areas that I'm most interested in right now is the concept of brands becoming educators, and the potential that they have to put out these really robust educational experiences. A good example of that is actually, something that we're doing for Experian is putting out a credit course. So it's one of the things that everybody graduates from, high school or wherever they graduate from, and nobody has taught them anything about credit.
Yeah.
So we all learn the hard way, which kind of sucks and is sort of dumb.
Yeah.
So we created the missing course, if you will, for credit to take people from zero to expert in 45 minutes or so.
Wow. That's
So
cool.
I think a lot of brands out there have, have enough content, have enough to teach to where they could create something like that. And
yeah. Does it take some educating to teach your brands the importance of doing something like that? Like why should they plow money into creating a course that's about how to, how a young person can understand their credit?
Yeah, I mean, to the degree that you can make the case that there is friction in their sales process, and that friction comes from a lack of understanding, or a lack of awareness, or a lack of something, an education course could start to make sense. So, for example, with Experian, the more people understand credit, the better they'll be at managing it. The more that they're going to start to pick up credit cards, and the more money that Experian will make in their credit card marketplace. So,
okay, makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, people having better credit is better for really everybody. Honestly, it just means that everybody is more reliable with their money.
Yeah, for sure.
So go ahead.
I want to, we're running a little short on time, so I want to wrap up with the question about gratitude. I'm a big fan of gratitude. I'm a big fan of acknowledging, especially people that have helped us get us where we are today, or peers and contemporaries. So, if you look around at your peers and contemporaries, however you want to define that, and you've interviewed, by the way, you got a great blog here on the pinwheelcontent.com on your website, where you've interviewed different creative directors. Who of your peers and contemporaries do you respect and admire the work that they're doing?
Oh, well, it's sort of a peer and sort of not a peer, but I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Kelly Campbell. She's our agency growth coach. And she created an agency that had 20, 30 people, learned a lot from that experience, ran it for 14 years, and then just decided that she wanted something more of a lifestyle business. And now she's coaching other agency owners to help them be more profitable and to grow. And I've learned so much from her about being an agency owner. But I've also I've partnered with her on some content projects as well. And I've also learned a different approach to, being in business, to being in the world, a sort of more balanced approach that is, embracing not just the sort of masculine drive, grow, succeed thing, but also the sort of sit back, think, be curious, investigate, listen, and she's really helped to sort of introduce me to that, the feminine side of business, and to really embrace that. And so that's what I've gleaned. I'm very grateful to her for that journey.
Great. Any other ones you want to mention, or leave it at that?
Yeah, there was this one when I was in Prague. The creative director there was this old guy named John Crankshaw, and he just this small guy, very unhealthy, smoked a lot of cigarettes, drank a lot of vodka, and he would talk he would spew just information just constantly. And one day I'm walking down the street with him, and he's in the middle of this like long rant. I don't know who he's talking to because I'm behind him and he's talking in front. Anyway, at one point he just stopped and he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "Todd, never lose your humanity. It's what will make you great." And then he just turned around and kept walking and kept talking. And for some reason, just the way that all went down and the way that he said it, it really stuck in my mind. And I go back to that now and again. And I think that really has been kind of a guiding light for me.
Never lose your humanity. Yeah, that's great advice. That's pretty funny.
It will make you great.
Todd, pinwheelcontent.com is the website. Anywhere else people can go to connect with you or learn more about you?
Let's see. LinkedIn. There it is. LinkedIn. Go connect with Todd on LinkedIn. Todd, thanks so much. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.